Hey everyone, this is Pallavi and today I'm going to show the 14th game of the book Chess, The Art of Logical Thinking by Neil MacDonald. This game was played between Kovacevic and Seirawan in Hoogovens, Vacancy in 1980. From this game, we will learn several key principles that highlight the strategic and tactical aspects of chess that players should consider when formulating their moves. So without further ado, let's start. White started with e4, occupying the center. d6, the Pirc Defence. While not found in 15th century chess manuscripts, black's aim is to fianchetto the king's bishop on g7, pressuring the white center. The kingside development involves knight f6, g6, and then bishop to g7. Initially, here, by playing d6, black protects the e5 square to prevent the knight from being attacked as seen in knight f6 and then e5, resembling the Alekhine defense. So after e4, d6, d4. White naturally won't decline the available free space in the center, knight f6. Thanks to black's initial precaution, the knight can occupy its optimal square without any disturbance. Knight c3, white defends e4 without wasting time. g6, black's move for his g7 bishop, bishop to e2. This seemingly unassuming move hides white's aggressive plans. A more effective approach for a direct assault could have been bishop e3, with the intention of exchanging dark squared bishops after bishop g7 using moves like queen d2 and bishop h6. So after bishop e2, black played bishop g7, the kingside fianchetto. Develops the bishop and makes way for castling. g4. With no immediate threat to the white center from black, white opts to initiate a swift kingside pawn attack. This aggressive strategy is ambitious and risky. If black successfully launches a counterattack, it raises the question of where the white king can find refuge. A more secure alternative would have been knight f3. White played g4, c6, a good move. Black played c6. Black isn't bothered by his opponent's attack and instead plans to counter on the queen side with b5. He avoids moving his king to the king side for now because that would make it an easy target for white's attack. Sometimes it's better to delay or even skip traditional moves like castling. A famous master once said, "You should only castle when you really need to, not just because you can." Now white played g5. White sticks to their attack plan and it has the benefit of making the black knight move from its strong post. Knight fd7. The knight chooses to remain in the center because going back to g8 would be a bad move. So white played h4. White presses on with his kingside assault, b5. And the black counterattack is launched on the queen side, h5. White hasn't been able to attack the black king on the king side because the black king is still on e8. However, white can make sense of their pawn moves if they can play pawn to h6 to force the black bishop back to f8, where it becomes trapped. But white's next move is a response to this potential threat. Guess what? Rook to g8, a smart move that puts black in a good position. Now, if white plays h6, black can reply with bishop to h8, keeping the black bishop on its strong diagonal. If that happens, white would have accomplished nothing by blocking the king side, and black would have many opportunities to make dynamic moves on the queen side. White played h takes g6. White believes that taking control of the h file with their rook will be beneficial, but they're in for a surprise. Looking back, it would have been wiser to keep things uncertain on the king side and not trade pieces. Black captured h takes g6. Now black is no longer troubled by events on the h file and can think about his own expansion on the queen side. Knight f3. Better late than never. White develops his knight. b4. Pawn power in action. In a mirror image of white's attack on the king side, the black pawn drives the knight away from its central square. Knight b1. A retreat that may seem weak but is still better than placing the knight in a vulnerable spot on a4. a5. Black's strategy centers around weakening white's defenses against the bishop on g7. He would be very happy if he could make moves like c6 to c5 or a4 to a3 to create opportunities with his pawns. Now white played a4. In the next moves, it's clear that white is playing defensively, trying to secure a draw by closing down the board. This makes white's pawns inflexible, weakens the e5 square, and removes the potential targets for the black bishop on g7. White's hope is that by limiting open lines, black won't find a way to win. White relies on controlling the open file with their rook on h1. Now black played c5, a crucial attack on the center that results in white giving up the open diagonal to the bishop on g7 without resistance. d5. The center's light squares are closed off. Knight b6. You might wonder, where is this knight headed? The answer is it's not going anywhere. The purpose is to clear the d7 square for the upcoming move. Now white played c4. The task of closing off the light squares is complete. White, while he could have taken an active approach with c3, white overlooked black's response, which is king d7. What? Without this clever clearance move, white's plan would have worked. The only path through the barrier of light squares is through the h file. Knight bd2. The irony lies in white constructing a robust fortress on the queen side, making it impossible to dismantle the barriers and access the black king. Rook h8. The black rook joyfully returns to the h file, marking the first step in the planned attack on white's position. Rook g1. Similar to black's rook g8, but unlike the isolated white rook on h file, the black rook will have the queen nearby for support. Now black played king c7. Black doesn't need to rush. He clears the way for the queen's knight to reach d7. The next step in weakening white's center. Rook b1. Now white plans b3 followed by bishop b2 in order to exchange the black bishop. Rook h3. The first black piece crosses into enemy territory and vacates the h8 square for the queen. b3. And now queen h8. The flexibility of the queen magnificently works in combination with the bishop diagonally and the rook laterally. Knight f1. Unable to proceed with his bishop b2 plan, white seeks an alternative way to develop the bishop by clearing a path to f4. White cannot develop the bishop on b2 because bishop will capture the bishop with the support of the queen. Now black played knight 8 d7. Finally, after 19 moves, black brings out the queen's knight. It's quite different from situations like on first move e4 then e5 where the knight needs to come into action like on the move second with knight f3 then knight c6. In closed positions like this, there's more flexibility to carefully pick the best squares for the pieces, since delaying their development is less likely to cause problems. So here white played bishop a4. Meanwhile, the white bishop finally develops after 20 moves, but it's in a very unfavorable position. Knight e5. This makes room for bishop d7 and allows for the active placement of the rook on a8. The following moves demonstrate the art of strategic piece exchanges. Knight takes knight on e5. The initial piece to vanish is the white knight, which was serving the role on the king side, a defensive role on the king side. So after knight takes e5, now black played bishop takes e5. Now black aims to remove white's bishop. White is contesting control over the e5 square. Although it means losing black's powerful bishop as well, the compensation lies in black's queen gaining mastery over all the dark squares. So after bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, attacking the e4 pawn, f3. This represents a positional threat since white's dark squares are left highly exposed, but there weren't any preferable alternatives. Bishop d7. Black releases their rook on a8 with this quiet move just before deciding it's the right moment to launch a full-scale attack against white's weak defenses. Queen c2. White's king can't escape to the queen side because of if king d2, then queen c3 is a checkmate. So with the current move, queen c2, white is setting up queen b2 to challenge the black queen. Black played queen d4. Black's grip on the dark squares is gradually tightened, also attacking the g1 rook. Rook g2. The rook flees to the second rank. For if rook g3, then rook takes g3, knight takes g3, queen g1 check, knight f1, queen takes g5, leaves white a pawn down. So white played rook g2, black played rook h1. The rook infiltrates even further into white's camp. Rook f2. White hopes the rook's placement will be beneficial. It defends the second rank and the knight guarding the king, while also aiding possible counterplay with f3 to f4. Black played a brilliant move, queen h8. While the queen seemed well placed on d4, overseeing the dark squares in the white center and on the sides, winning a chess game relies on coordinating all the pieces. Consequently, black moves the queen back to complement the rook's influence in utilizing the h-file. f4. Unable to endure the gradual decline, white makes a move to stir things up in the center. However, this approach only accelerates the conclusion as white's defenses become further weakened. Queen h4. The pin on the rook will prove highly unpleasant for the white king. Rook d1. White struggles on tenaciously. In a losing situation, it's often wise to centralize your pieces and hope for the best. Not all opponents will be as skilled as Seirawan in quickly closing out the game. Black played f6. Finally, black uses their pawns to open up lines and aims to checkmate white king while their own king is safely positioned on c7. G takes f6. This opens up the e-file, which poses a serious threat to the white king. However, had white allowed f takes g5, it would have led to the opening of the f file with equally devastating consequences. So white had to capture the f6 pawn. Then black captured e takes f6. Black recaptures and prepares to target the e4 pawn with moves like rook e8 and f5. e5. Now white takes initiative and opens up the position because there seems to be no solution to the impending black threats. Predictably, this results in a swift defeat. F takes e5. The one thing black mustn't do is allow counterplay after d takes e5, then d6 check. So f takes e5, f takes e5. White hopes that e takes d6, check, or e6 will generate some initiative, but black is not to be distracted by this sideshow. Rook f8, a very belated but devastating entrance by the rook into the game. The threat, of course, is queen takes f2 check. E takes d6, check on the king. Maybe black will capture the pawn, and then queen takes g6 will happen immediately, but king b7. The black king moves to a completely safe position. The additional white pawn on d6 doesn't matter at all because white has no response to the pin on f2. White played bishop d3. The only way to defend f2 is clear. After black's move, it becomes evident that the seemingly passive bishop had a vital defensive role in blocking the e file. Rook e8, check. And white resigned. The game came to an abrupt conclusion here because if king d2, then queen takes f2 is played, while bishop e2 allows black to capitalize on the double pin on e2 and f2, resulting in a win with rook takes f1, check, king takes f1, queen h1, checkmate. It's a beautiful ending, though not as awe-inspiring as some of Seirawan's strategic moves during the game. Key lessons and principles to take away from this game. Strategic coordination. The game demonstrates the importance of coordinating your pieces effectively, focusing on the overall position rather than individual piece strength. Exploiting weaknesses. Black consistently exploited white's weaknesses, particularly focusing on white's vulnerable dark squares. Timing. The game emphasizes the significance of timing in chess. Moves were made when the position was ripe for an attack or defense. Risk management. Black avoided unnecessary risks and played solidly when needed, balancing aggression with caution. Endgame technique. Towards the end of the game, black displayed a strong endgame technique, converting their advantages into a winning position. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video and learned something from this video as well. To show some support, please like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.